Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Welcome guys, welcome back to our lesson. So today we have chapter 6 and in this chapter we are going to look at the climate of India. So in the previous class, what we did was we looked at India and its geographical and physical features. And there we saw some of the important features, geographical and physical features of India. We looked at the mountains, we looked at the plains, we looked at the desert, plateau, coastal plains, right? And we saw how all these features are distinct from one another, making Indian geography a unique geography to study. Now, from that, we move on to look at climate. Now, climate, of course, is not similar to physical features of India, not similar to geography, the geographical features. But why I'm referring back to the previous lesson is because when we try to understand climate, then there will be references to the physical features of our country, of India. So, in order to understand climate, we should also have already understood geographical features because they are related to each other. Okay? Now, before we go on, the first thing that comes to our mind is what is climate, right? Climate is a typical weather conditions of an area. So, imagine India is an area. Now, the typical weather condition of an area of India is called climate. But we must remember that weather condition remains same for a long period of time. Okay? Here, I stress on the point that climatic condition has to remain same for a long period of time. Because if it does not remain same for a long period of time, then it is called weather. I'm pretty sure when we began with climate, what is climate? Many of you must have immediately thought of weather. Now, weather and climate are not same. We often confuse between weather and climate. Okay? But it is not same. Weather is the condition, okay, the temperature, the condition which does not remain same for a long period of time. It keeps on changing. For example, today is a sunny day, but in the evening it can be a gloomy day. So the weather changes from morning to evening, okay? But the climate remains same. The Indian climate is a tropical climate and that remains same today, tomorrow, the entire year, next year, the following years. Okay? So, that is the basic difference between weather and climate and please do not confuse between the two. Okay? Now, the climatic conditions or the climate of India, it influences flora and fauna. Flora means flowers, plants, trees, etc. And fauna, animals. Okay, so according to what kind of climate a region has, it influences what kind of animals, what kind of trees, what kind of plants grow in that region or what kind of animals inhabit that region. So it impacts or influences the environmental diversity, whether it has green vegetation or dense forest or whether it has sparse vegetation or sparse forests, whether it has rocky landscape, whether it has muddy, marshy landscape, whether it has various species of animals and plants or whether it does not have that. Okay, so all that environmental diversity depends upon the climate, typical weather condition of any region. It also influences the livelihood of people. According to the climate, the people's life is also influenced. What they wear, what they eat, where they live, how they live, what are their occupations or jobs, etc. Okay? So this is climate. But how is climate caused? How is climate caused? Okay. Now climate is caused by long time effect of the sun's radiation. We know that the planet Earth, so the planet Earth revolves around the sun. This is the sun, okay, and it rotates on its axis. This is the axis where it rotates, and this is the path of its revolution, okay. Now when it rotates on its axis, the sun, its rays falls on the planet Earth. Now the radiation that it receives, okay, in what position, where it receives more, whether in northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere, whether at the center where the equator is, okay. So according to that radiation, the climate is caused, or the effect of that radiation goes on to form the climate, okay. So the long time effect, that effect takes a long time. That effect does not develop over one night, over 1 week, over 1 month, okay. The effect is the result of the radiation that takes place for a long time. So that effect of the sun's radiation on rotating Earth's surface and atmosphere, that causes to become the climate of that particular area. Okay. Now that radiation, like I said, if the countries, for example, the radiation of the sun at the center, at the equator is the strongest, okay, then the countries lying here will have very hot temperature, or the climate will be extremely hot climate, okay. Now if the radiation of the sun towards the north and the south pole is very minimum, okay, is minimal, then the climatic condition or the climate of that place would be severe cold, okay. So because of the effect of the sun's radiation on Earth, the climate is caused. Now this climate of any area or India can easily be understood, okay, if we look at the temperature and precipitation. Temperature, you know temperature, right? The degrees, how hot it gets, how cold it gets, that is the temperature. Precipitation is basically rainfall. Okay, how much of rainfall is received by that area, by that region, by that country. So these two, by looking at the temperature and the precipitation, we can better understand climate of any area. Okay, now this temperature and precipitation or the rainfall, that can be calculated annually or seasonally. Okay, we have to observe, it is observed on the basis of annual, per year or seasons. Okay, 6 months, hot season, cold season, etc. for 6 months, 3 months, etc. Now, in the last class, we learned about the topography and geography of India, where we saw various physical features, right? And how we also learned that each feature was different as well as distinct from one another. They had unique features. Each feature was unique. Okay? So, this unique feature of the Indian geography also impacts the climatic conditions that it has. Because of the topography and the geography, which is different, which is very diverse, distinct from one another, the climatic conditions also become diverse. They also vary from one another. Okay, like for example, the Himalayas, the Great Himalayan Range will have different climatic conditions than the Thar Desert or the Great Indian Desert. Okay, in a similar manner, the northern plains will have different than the coastal plains. All right. Now, this diversity, this change in the climatic conditions also is different because of the region and the season. Okay, every region is different. Like for example, the northeast region, the north region, the south region, the west region. So all these regions, different regions also have different climatic conditions, and on the basis of seasons as well. Okay, autumn, we have many seasons which we'll look at in the later part of the class. So because of the seasons and regions also which are diverse, the climatic conditions also become diverse. So we have tropical to temperate zones because of the region, because of the seasons. Okay, we have diverse climatic conditions because of the geography and topography, and because of the different regions, separate regions, right, and the seasons. We also have tropical and temperate zones. Zones means areas. Okay, some areas have tropical climatic conditions while other areas have temperate climatic conditions. So those areas, according to what kind of climate they have, they are called tropical zones and then temperate zones. Okay, so that is why most of the part of India, it has tropical climate. Okay, the climate of India is called tropical, but the mountainous region, the great Himalayan region, does not have tropical climate because it's a mountainous region. So that region has cold climate. Okay, except the mountains in the north, the great Himalayan ranges in the north, the rest of India has tropical climate. So you can see how the geography and the region also influences the climatic conditions. Now, the rest of India has tropical climate. Okay, and this tropical climate is influenced by something called monsoons. Okay, now we'll look at monsoons in detail very soon, but here just remember that the tropical climate of India has also monsoons. Now these monsoons are northwestern monsoons, northeastern monsoons, from where it comes. So if this is the map of India, so this is the southern part of India, right? And if we say monsoons, monsoons are basically winds. Okay, so these winds are southwestern and northeastern. Southwestern is this part. Okay, and northeastern is here. So from here and here. So these monsoons are blown, or it comes from two opposite directions, and these monsoons influence the temperature, how hot or how cold it gets in this region. That is influenced by the monsoons, the southwestern monsoon and the northeastern monsoon. And as a result of this wind blowing from two opposite sides, it results in humidity and precipitation. Humidity is the amount of water that our atmosphere can absorb, and precipitation is rainfall. Okay, humidity is moisture that the atmosphere absorbs. Okay, so because of this wind blowing from certain direction, it influences the temperature, and that results in the humidity, how humid it gets, and also how much rainfall certain areas receive. So all this while we had been talking about so many things that climate is part of, so many things that climate is influenced by. So what we can understand is climate of a country is mainly based on temperature, rainfall, atmospheric pressure, and direction of the winds. So these 1, 2, 3, 4. These 4 factors are main factors on which climate of any country is based upon. Okay. Similarly, the climate of India is also based upon temperature, rainfall, atmospheric pressure, and direction of winds. Okay, but it is influenced by two main factors. There are two factors which influences the climatic conditions of India. The first one is Tropic of Cancer. So, how the Tropic of Cancer influences? Let's see. The Tropic of Cancer divides the country into two. Okay, one is North Temperate Zone and the other is South Tropical Zone. The Tropic of Cancer, if you remember in the first chapter, we briefly looked at it. We saw how the earth is divided into two halves, northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere. Similarly, it is divided into two halves in eastern hemisphere and western hemisphere. India is divided into two halves by Tropic of Cancer and then the division is north and south. So that division also divides it into two zones. Okay, and here the climate is also influenced by this division. So the northern zone is called North Temperate Zone and the southern zone, the southern part, southern half is called South Tropical Zone. Okay. And another factor which influences the climate of India is the Great Himalayan Range in the north. Now the Great Himalayan Range, we know how vast it is, right? It spreads, it extends from Jammu and Kashmir in the west to Arunachal Pradesh in the east. So it's a vast range of mountains. Now this range separates the Indian subcontinent. The term Indian subcontinent we have already learned in the last class. So do not get confused. Indian subcontinent is the term which is given to all the countries which lie in the south of the Himalayan range. So it is Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, all these countries, Nepal, Bhutan. Okay. So if you have forgotten what Indian subcontinent consists of and what it means, then please go back to the previous lesson and revise. Now, Great Himalayan Range or the Himalayas, it separates the Indian subcontinent from the rest of Asia. We know that India is part of Asia, but the Himalayas is located in such a manner that it separates India and the countries which lie next to India, India's neighboring countries, and it makes one whole region which is called South Asia. Okay, so this Himalayan range not only separates Indian subcontinent from the rest of Asia, but it also blocks the cold air that blows from Central Asia, okay, and keeps India and the South Asian countries warm. All right. So as a result of these factors, India's climate contrasts from that in the north to that in the south. In the north, it is colder, and in the south, it is warmer. It is hotter. Okay. So in the north, we have temperate zone, and in the south, we have tropical zone. So because of this difference, we can see that it contrasts. It is different from one another. But there is one unifying factor in that climate of India, in that climatic condition, and that is monsoons. The Himalayan range, the areas which lie along the Himalayas, that area receives snowfall, that area has temperate climatic condition. While the southern part of India, the rest of the part of India has tropical climate and it is warmer. It does not receive snowfall. But what both these zones have similarity is the monsoon, which means it receives monsoon winds. Monsoons are winds which bring rain. Okay, so no matter it is in the temperate zone or in the tropical zone of the Indian country of India, both these zones receive rainfalls. or is it receives the monsoons. Alright, so that is why what we can say is that India's climate is called tropical monsoon type. Okay, so if there is a question for you, what kind of climatic condition or what is the climate of India, then you are to answer tropical monsoon type. Alright. So with that, we move on to the first topic. And since we had been mentioning about monsoon, here we will try to look into monsoon in detail. So the first thing that we are going to answer is, what is monsoon? Now monsoon is derived from an Arabic word which is mausam. Okay, the Arabic word is mausam. Many of you already can tell that mausam means season, right? So mausam is the Arabic word from where monsoon comes, and it basically means season. Like I said, monsoon is basically wind. It is the wind which changes direction with the change of seasons. So according to the season, it changes its direction, and that affects the temperature and precipitation of that area, and thereby affects the climate. Now this wind prevails mostly in Indian Ocean. Again, going back to the map, so if this is the peninsular part of India, then this is the southern part where lies the Indian Ocean. This is Arabian Sea and this is Bay of Bengal. Alright. So the monsoon, they basically prevail here. They are found here, that wind. And from here, the wind blows across India and to other parts of Southeast Asia. Now this wind blows from southwest from April to October. So the wind is basically here in the Indian Ocean, this area. Okay, from April to October every year, from April to October, that wind blows from southwest. So if this is south, then southwest is this direction. So it blows from this direction. Alright, and from northeast from October to April. And from October to April again, it blows from the opposite direction, which is the northeast. So it blows from this direction. Alright. So the southwest So as a result of that, summer monsoon occurs according to where these monsoon winds blow from. One from the southwest and one from the northeast. April to October, October to April. So accordingly, because of that, what happens? Summer monsoon occurs, or it is also called southwest monsoon occurs. So if the monsoon wind is blowing from southwestern part of India towards the northeast, then what happens? Summer monsoon occurs. Okay. And when warm moist air from Indian Ocean, so the wind carries warm moist air from Indian Ocean and blows in the southwestern direction, from the southwestern direction, and that brings heavy rain. Okay, that brings heavy rain in the land area of India as well as Southeast Asia. Okay, so the southwestern monsoon which blows across India and Southeast Asia, and as it blows, it brings heavy rain. That is from the month of April to October. And the other, the opposite wind which blows, the northeastern monsoon. The northeastern monsoon brings northeast monsoon. Okay, and this wind, it brings cold, dry winter air from northeast into the mainland India, and then as a result of the cold, dry winter air that it brings from the northeastern part, then cool, dry winter season is brought in the mainland area. Okay, so one is the southwestern wind or monsoon is bringing heavy rain. The northeastern monsoon is bringing cold, cool, dry season. Okay. Now, apart from this, there are two elements that affect the climate of India, and those are temperature and precipitation. This we have already done in the first section, very briefly, right? How we said that because of the region, because of the season, as well as the temperature and precipitation, the climate of India changes, it varies. Okay, so the climate of India is affected, or it is influenced by the temperature and precipitation, how much rainfall it receives, and whether the temperature is cold or warm or hot, that also changes the climatic condition. So as we all know that the climatic condition changes from place to place and season to season. Okay, and apart from changing from place to place and also depending on the topography and geography, there's also seasonal distribution. The seasons also impact or affect the temperature or the climate, okay, or precipitation. So for example, the Himalayan region, the Himalayan ranges that receive snowfall, but the rest of the country that does not receive snowfall, and what it receives, monsoon or rainfall. Okay. Likewise, the annual precipitation or the annual rainfall that Meghalaya receives is between 400 centimeter, which means it receives heavy rainfall every year. But if you look at Western Rajasthan or Ladakh area, it receives less than 10 centimeter of rainfall annually, which is very scanty. Okay, so you can see that according to the season, okay, according to how the places are or the regions are placed in different parts of our country, their seasons also varies. Okay, their temperature and precipitation also varies. Some are receiving snowfall, some are receiving rainfall, some heavy rain while others very less rain. Now similarly, the coastal Tamil Nadu area in southern part of India, it receives rain in early autumn or winter. Okay, the rain comes only in early autumn or winter, towards the end of the year. But most of India does not receive rainfall towards the end of the year, in autumn or early winter, but it receives rainfall during summer between June and September. So you can see the difference there again, depending on where it is located, the region is located, right? The rain in Tamil Nadu is brought by the northeast monsoon, the wind which flows from the northeastern part of India and brings cool, dry air. That monsoon wind brings rain in Tamil Nadu. But in northern India, the rain is not brought by the northeast monsoon. It is caused by the western monsoon. Okay. Now the coastal regions meaning the coastal areas which circle or which acts as a boundary along the peninsular India, that has minimum contrast in temperature, meaning the temperature does not vary there. it remains almost the same in the eastern coastal plain and in the western coastal plain. But if you come inside of the mainland, okay, if you come towards the plateau, towards the Deccan, towards the plains, then there are more seasonal contrasts, then there are more contrasts, then the climatic condition varies, the temperature varies, the precipitation varies. Okay. So, in the similar manner, the rainfall which India receives, that rainfall is not same. If you go towards east, Meghalaya, Shillong, there the rainfall is heavy or more. But if you move towards the west, from east towards Rajasthan, the rainfall is scanty, very less. So, the rainfall decreases from east to west. You come from the eastern part of India towards the west and you see how much of rainfall it receives, the entire area, then you'll realize that the rainfall decreases. The amount of rainfall that these regions receive, they decrease as you come from east to west, okay, in northern plains. Now, because of these seasonal changes, because of these topographical diversity and how it impacts the climate, the lifestyle of people is also influenced. Okay, so how it is influenced? People have different clothing styles. People in the east will wear cotton. Okay, people in Rajasthan where they receive scanty rainfall, they'll wear, it's very hot, so they'll wear loose clothing. But in the Himalayas, people will wear very thick clothing, warm clothing, etc. Okay. In a similar manner, the housing also varies. Some people in the cold areas, they live in wooden houses. But if you go to Rajasthan, they'll put up a tent or mud houses. And in the similar manner, because of the climate, the food habits of people also changes. People living in hot temperature areas, they eat light food. Okay, but people who live in the cold areas, they'll have different kind of food than the food that people in other areas eat. So in that manner, the lifestyle, how people live, what they wear, where they live, where they sleep, what they eat, those are also influenced and changed. Now, it is not only the lifestyle which is influenced by the climate, but the occupation of the people is also influenced. Okay, so one of the occupation which gets influenced heavily by the climatic condition is agriculture, farming, okay, cultivation. All right, so agriculture is most influenced occupation of people by climatic conditions. Okay, so the timing and the amount of rainfall in agriculture is very important. When it rains, okay, and how much it rains, that is very important for growing crops, for cultivating crops, okay, for farming, because with that they have good harvest. And if the rainfall is not enough, if the timing is not good, then they have crop failure. And if they do not receive any rainfall at all, then they also have famine. So these are the results of the timing and amount of rainfall they receive. So you can see how the climate also influences the occupation of the people. Okay, and the agriculture is influenced heavily by the climatic conditions. If there are no proper rainfall and on time, then the crop fails. Sometimes famine occurs. Okay, and then people don't have food to eat, don't have food to sell, they don't have good harvest. But if the rainfall is enough and is on time, then they have good harvest. Then people can eat, people have surplus food to sell. Okay, and they get money. So all those are affected and influenced by the climate. In the similar manner, the climate also impacts the culture of India. Okay, the culture meaning the how we live, so our lives, music, literature, all these are also influenced by the climate. So as a result of that, what happens? Very distinct folk lifestyle of the people in certain areas, in certain villages, in certain towns, that develops. Dances, music, festivals, paintings and literature, they're all influenced heavily by the climate of that particular region. Okay, so you can see that how the climate plays a very important part in our livelihoods, in our culture, in maintaining temperature, precipitation, not only in the country, not only on the landscape, not only on the land, but as well as on the people that inhabit the land. Okay.